Hey guys, today we're going to look at making the switch from acoustic to electric guitar. Now you know there's something super special when it comes to playing acoustic guitar in an intimate worship setting, but I know that a lot of you guys are considering switching from the acoustic to the electric guitar so that you can really open up a door to more musical possibilities and also exploring the broader soundscape in your worship sessions by making that switch from acoustic to electric. So that's why in today's video we're going to be diving deep into the switch, and I'll be covering everything from the vast array of tones and effects right up to the specific techniques that you need to play electric guitar. So whether you're a seasoned acoustic player or maybe even a newbie eager to discover the electric realm, I've got you covered in today's video. So let's go ahead and dig into the 5 most important areas that you need to master in order to seamlessly move from the acoustic to the electric. Alright, so let's go ahead and kick things off with tone. So the electric guitar lets you play around with loads of cool sounds, way more than the acoustic. It's kind of like stepping into a whole new world of musical colors and vibes, if you want to look at it like that. And it really helps you to create a sound that will fit the feel of worship sessions. You see, on the acoustic guitar, we tend to use one organic sound throughout the song, right? But on the electric guitar, we have the ability to manipulate and mold the sound of our guitar in a huge variety of ways. So let's go ahead and contrast a typical acoustic guitar sound with an electric guitar. Alright, so now that you've heard the difference between the acoustic and the electric, you can see it's quite a big difference. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and briefly touch on some of those essential effects that you should learn to use when it comes to shaping your sound on the electric guitar. Now, first up, we've got compression, and you can kind of think of compression as the guardian of your sound. It's going to make the soft bits louder and the loud bits softer, so you end up with a nice, even sound across the board. Now, this is super important for keeping things clear and making your notes last longer, which we call sustain. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a fairly dirty sound here with some delay, but I'm going to play a line with and without compression. And you'll hear that when I add the compression in, I get a lot more sustain out of my notes. They make the notes last longer, and they also sound more smooth and even than what it would be without the compression. So let's go ahead and check out this line without compression. And now with compression. Let's take the compression off. I'm going to play one note. Kind of sounds like it lacks a bit of oomph. Let's put the compression back. So as you can see, when I added compression, it just makes the notes sound more tight and focused, and it gives me a longer sustain. Alright, so hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what the compression does. So compression is more of a subtle effect. It's something that is really felt more than what it's heard, and it's not quite as drastic and apparent as it would be when I play with or without reverb, or with or without delay, or even drive for that matter, where you can clearly hear what the effect does. The main thing just to know with compression, it just kind of really puts everything nice and tightly together with your sound, so that you have better sustain and that your sound levels is more consistent, which is really important for when you are playing live in a worship environment, because there's so many instruments and so many things happening. You want to get a nice, tight and focused sound. Now, something else that helps to give you that nice, tight and focused sound is overdrive. Now, Overdrive really adds a touch of grit and sustain to your sound, which is really adding a cool tonal character, which brings along with it some intensity and warmth. Now, personally, I almost never use a pure clean tone when playing worship. Instead, I rather have degrees of drive that I can dial in as needed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of demo some sounds here with and without a drive. So here's my sound without the drive kicked in there. If I kick the drive in, as you can see, it makes a lot of difference. Or even if I just do, so you can see by adding the drive, it really kind of just adds an additional character to the guitar. So when you add drive, it really gets the guitar to cut through the mix, and it just really kind of amplifies up the sound. So those are the two important effects that you need to have dialed in at the beginning of your chain, which is compression and drive. Next up, we have modulation. Now, a modulation effect will modify your sound by adding some depth and space, and really creating some cool textures that can transform your music into a more expansive and immersive experience. Let me go ahead and show you a sound with and without modulation. All right, so our first type of modulation here is going to be a tremolo. So here's a D chord without any modulation. I'm going to add in some tremolo. Kind of hear how that sound pulses. Now let's look at like a retro reel type effect. And something a little bit more subtle, which is a chorus. So as you can see, when I add this chorus, or the retro reel, or the tremolo, so as you can see, when I add these various types of modulation, it just gives me a different character to my sound. So already now we've looked at compression, we've looked at drive, and different types of modulation. So next up, let's have a look at delay. Now, delay is kind of like your guitar sound echoing in a big canyon. It's going to add some additional layers and really make the sound feel a lot bigger and more spacious. Let's go ahead and show you what that sounds like. All right, so here I have a clean sound. So if I just play a sound like this, it's going to be clean. But if I add like a dual delay, as you can hear, those repeats sound really cool when I play chords like that, or even single note lines. And if I go for like a transistor tape delay, without that transistor tape delay, with it, or like with a memory man type of delay. So you can get a lot of cool sounds when you use delay in your playing. Now that can sound even better when I add in reverb. Listen to this. Now reverb is like adding the vibe of a room or a space to your sound. So that's going to give your sound a really cool, an airy and kind of a spacious feel to it so that it sounds like you're playing in a big room. Let me go ahead and show you the reverb on its own. So again, here I have my dry sound. If I add in reverb, this is like a bloom verb. Or like a cloud verb. Add delay to that. It starts to make a very big difference to your sound. Now if you add to that some drive. As you can hear, getting these tones right can really make a big difference in your sound. What it does, it kind of makes sure that everything blends together well, and it creates a nice vibe where every note or chord you play really fits well within that worship atmosphere. Now, if you want to learn more about tone, we have a bunch of videos on this channel. We've linked to all of them in the description. And if you want to get access to the exact Helix patches that I'm using in this video, you can also find links in the description to check those things out. All right, so now the second thing is chords. With the electric guitar, we're typically using a lot smaller and simpler chords than what you would use on the acoustic. Mostly focusing around triads and dyads. Now these smaller kind of chords will make your sound a lot more detailed, but it's not too strong or overwhelming, which will make sure that your sound is easy to cut through the mix and really add to that overall sound. And don't forget, if you pair your chords with the right sound, even a small 2-note chord can sound big and full, helping you to really play in a way that really lifts up the worship session. Let me go ahead and show you a couple of these 2-note chords in action. See, that was a simple 2-chord progression, but I played 4 2 voicings for G, then for C. Those are really cool voicings to use. I also used octaves. Right, then I use some power chords. I also used tenths. All all of those were simply 2-note voicings. And it's very important to learn how to play voicings using only 2 notes on the electric guitar, because that's going to allow you to be very expressive in your playing without getting bogged down by playing big fat chord shapes that don't really cut through the mix. Now these 4/2 diodes is really a staple in my playing, and the first thing that I take all of my worship guitar skills students through, and I've linked to some videos in the description if you want to learn more about these voicings and use it to expand your chord vocabulary. Alright, now moving on to technique. When you're playing the electric guitar, you got to really be mindful of the way you play. And that's where proper technique kicks in, because it lets you play with precision, and it really opens up a lot of different ways in which you can express yourself on the guitar. Now, a lot of times, like you've obviously heard today, kind of dealing with a lot more of a grittier sound. So that's why having tight and clean technique is really crucial to make the most out of that dirty sound. Proper string muting, that's going to be a game changer to get rid of any unwanted noise, especially when you are cranking up the gain. So you remember earlier I played something like this. And all you're hearing there is literally just 2 notes. But when I actually play all 6 strings, you're only hearing 2 notes because of my string muting. When I actually don't mute my strings and I play that same line, it's very noisy because now I've got all those additional strings ringing out, which is why string muting is really important for you to kind of get down in order to play with confidence. Because if you are scared of hitting the wrong note when you are playing, you're going to play timidly, you're not really going to dig into the strings. But when your string muting technique is solid, then you don't have to worry about that, because any unwanted strings will remain silent regardless of what you are playing. Now you also need to work on your finger dexterity. You see, when you're playing acoustic guitar, you tend to grab a chord with a fretting hand, and then you're just going to strum it with the strumming hand. So it's very much grab a chord, strum a chord. But when you play electric, you need to have a lot more of a detailed and nuanced approach, which is why it's very important to add precision to both hands, which is quite similar to a piano player's approach. For example, let me go ahead and demonstrate alternate picking together with hybrid picking in order to get some of that precision going. So alternate picking is when I pick down and up like this. Now you need to be comfortable with the down and up picking across different strings as well. So for example, if you play something like this, so you got to be comfortable kind of moving across the strings like that. And then also something like hybrid picking, where you can do something like this. Kind of gets you into that zone where you're not striking strings all at the same time, but you're using a hybrid picking, which is a combination of your pick and finger. Kind of get more of a piano approach, and that allows you to play some cool patterns, which is not possible when you're just strumming all the strings at the same time. Now, something else you would have seen me use throughout today's video is articulation. These are things like hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, string bending, and vibrato. These are some tools that you have at your disposal to give each note its own personality. And remember, it's not just about which notes you play, but how you play them. And that is when you start to be able to make music and kind of tell your own unique story with every note. So get used to using articulation on the guitar. And remember that having a solid technique is not just about the sound, it's also going to boost your confidence when playing. And when you are confident, everything just flows better and the whole worship experience gets elevated because you are in control of your technique. Now, next up is exploring single notes. When you explore single notes on the electric guitar, it can be very cool because you are able to take simply one note at a time, and then with the right touch and the right feel, you can create some striking melodies and some impactful solos, carving out some super cool, memorable musical moments. And when you add the right rhythm to these single note riffs, it can really craft some dynamic and compelling lead lines, just adding another layer to your overall musical ability. Now, in this next example, I'm going to show you how I can use single notes with a rhythmic approach to add a really cool lead guitar part to this track. In those parts, all of it was simply one note at a time, which is very different to acoustic, because acoustic you're mostly going to play 5 or 6 strings together at the same time. So learning how to use single notes on an electric guitar is a very cool thing to do. Now finally, you have theory. Now many acoustic guitar players kind of start their journey learning chord shapes, but they often lack the understanding of the individual notes within those chords. Now when you transition to the electric guitar, it's really important to distinguish between chord tones and non-chord tones, because that's going to help you make more informed and intentional musical choices, really avoiding the trap of just blindly playing scales and shapes. And that means your playing will sound more musical, more expressive, and ultimately more emotive. So there you have the 5 things that you need to focus on when you want to make the switch from an acoustic guitar to the electric guitar, and really do so with skill and confidence. Now, if you want to discover how to unlock the hidden language of melodies, then you can go ahead and check out this video, because melodic playing is a big part of playing electric. And in this video, I'll show you how to combine both chord tones and non-chord tones together in a musical and expressive way.